Namaskar dosto, good evening friends. I am Dr. Sanjay Kalra, your friendly and familiar endocrinologist. And you're watching Dr. KK's Med Talks, Pharma Talks with Dr. Sanjay Kalra. This is our non-stop show, 861st episode. 861वां episode है ये. And also it's our third episode, तीसरी episode है of Pharma Talks. We are kickstarting a special series called Pharma Talks, where we'll be inviting and talking to leaders from the medical industry, the pharmaceutical industry. Let's have the headlines for today. As per Global Newswire, the pharmaceutical market is anticipated to reach 1700, and there's a point also, a decimal also after that, 1700.97 billion US dollars. अब इतने तो मुझे काउंट भी नहीं करने आते honestly. In 2025, just 2 years from now, महज 2 सालों में, at a combined annual growth rate of 8%. So that's a huge market. Technologies that enable digital transformation in the pharma industry include automation, blockchain, machine learning, and artificial intelligence. By 2025, the AI technology is anticipated to grow by over $100 billion. So that means it is important, बहुत important चीज़ है ये. Of course, AI innovation has increased significantly over the last few years, and blockchain and RFID have significant implications in the fight against counterfeit medicine. ये भी एक important issue है. Digital health, alongside, has the potential to level the playing field in healthcare. And digital health will help us ensure that everyone, हम बात करते हैं सर्वोदय की, that means benefit of all, and अंत्योदय, benefit for the last person in the queue. Digital health can actually help us achieve both sarvodaya and antyodaya in healthcare. Clinicians are increasingly embracing this digital health. What's digital transformation then? Let's find out. Let's see what our topic is for today. So digital health needs digital transformation, and the leader is the pharmaceutical industry. Let's invite a leader to our stage today, to our show today. Warm welcome, Mr. Omar Sharif Muhammad.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kalra, for this invite. Happy to be here with you on Med Talks.
Thank you, sir. It's great having you. Mr. Omar Muhammad Sharif is the cluster head for India, the Middle East, and Africa at Roche. That's half the United Nations, right, Mr. Omar?
It's 70 countries, sir.
I think if we try hard, we can count up till 70. We can try.
It'll take quite some time.
More than 2 decades of strong experience in sales and marketing and leadership across various specialties, across various countries, various continents. Mr. Omar is a hardcore marketing professional and a very result-driven person. The multifaceted experience that he has in sales, marketing, management actually extends to people. So you will find that he's a very person-centric, a very people-centric leader. उमर जी, हमारा आज का टॉपिक है डिजिटल ट्रांसफॉर्मेशन इन द फार्मास्यूटिकल इंडस्ट्री. Can we break this down for our viewers? And we have people logged in from across the world. Actually, Swapna Jain ji from Vellore, Nitin Narula ji already saying good evening to you. तो एक-एक करके करते हैं. Industry and pharmaceutical industry. Can you define and describe this?
Sure. No, thank you very much for that question. And this is a very interesting topic, and it's kind of come to forefront also because of the pandemic. My initial comments, sir, still remain that the future of customer engagement, at least in pharmaceutical or let's say healthcare, is going to be hybrid, which means it is not only going to be face-to-face, but also digital. So therefore, I usually call it that the engagement is going to be phygital. And we have seen, sir, during pandemic, customers actually changed their behavior. And when they have changed their behavior, I think we in healthcare industry had to also change it. And we also saw that pandemic had actually forced healthcare systems across the globe to respond rapidly to the crisis that we had at hand during those days. And I can say many companies, many organizations, many hospitals adopted digital solutions such as, let's say, telemedicine and remote monitoring. And this has also been an opportunity to transform healthcare with digital innovation and how we engage with customers, let that be healthcare professionals like you or like our channel partners, which is e-commerce which actually boomed quite a lot during the pandemic stage. So I believe that the technology will play a greater role in healthcare, particularly through advances in medical applications, devices which are actually linked to smartphone and tablets and computers. So a lot what happens can be delivered through smart data so that healthcare professionals like you can deliver or review them and give feedback to the patients remotely nowadays. And there are also many ways that technology can keep people on track whilst we limit the face-to-face contact. And you have also seen a lot of emerging data that provides the impetus to kind of look at this data and convert that into outcome-based evidence-based medicine and delivering better treatment outcomes. So,
तो उमर साहब खूब सारी चीज़ें कह रहे हैं। एक तो जो डिजिटल ट्रांसफ़ॉर्मेशन आई, ये केवल डिजिटल ही नहीं होगी, हाइब्रिड होगी। Hybrid means that there is always going to be a place for the old-fashioned style or whatever we're used to, the conventional style of working, of communication. एंड चेंज क्यों आया? पार्टली बिकॉज़ ऑफ कोविड। ऑफ कोर्स अगर कोविड ना होता तो और कुछ होता। आई मीन सर्टेनली समथिंग एल्स वुड हैव बीन देयर। आई थिंक देयर इज़ समथिंग नोन एज़ Malthus theory which says कि ups and downs आते रहते हैं एंड देन करंट्स एंड काउंटर करंट्स विल बी देयर। तो जैसे-जैसे पृथ्वी पे बोझ बढ़ता है इंसानों का कुछ ना कुछ हो जाता है। तो बोझ इतना बढ़ रहा था कि समथिंग एल्स वुड हैव हैपेंड इफ इट हैडंट बीन कोविड। Yeah, and these changes would have occurred. And then Mr. Omar goes on to say कि ये teamwork है. So we need collaboration, we need cooperation with everybody, not only healthcare professionals, but the general public at large. जो भी आपके experiences हैं, आप feedback दें हमें. And Bimla Kapoor ji, Dr. Rameshpal Singh Pawar are logged in. तो वो feedback ही मांगेंगे सबसे. How can we improve? And how can we improve together? तो ये तो हो गया digital transformation का. The pharmaceutical industry, Mr. Omar, how big is it? How much does it contribute to the Indian economy? How
yeah,
resilient is it?
yeah. No, I mean, pharmaceutical industry, sir, is going to close to a 2 lakh crore as we speak about it, and it's actually growing at 8%. And I operate in one small therapy which contributes 4% to the entire healthcare, which is diabetes care, and that is again also growing at close to 8%. So if you and I was talking to somebody a couple of days back, if you look at only one industry, if you take a compounded annual growth rate over the last 15 years, which has been growing positively, I would say is the pharmaceutical industry, or let's say healthcare industry. So I think it's really huge, and it also contributes to the GDP close to, I think, another 3 to 4%. So that's also pretty sizable, sir.
So we are talking today of digital transformation in the healthcare industry. Healthcare industry बहुत important है, जैसे Mr. Omar कह रहे हैं. It's one of the few resilient industries in the world. Uh, it contributes to our economy. You handle these 70 countries now. Would you like to speak from an Indian perspective, then maybe a Middle Eastern, and overall an African perspective? Of course, Africa में भी 50 से ज़्यादा countries हैं. Uh,
So
how are things there in the pharmaceutical industry?
yeah. So, sir, when you look at India and some of the other markets, I would say India is more so a private market now. So, let's say most of the pharmaceutical companies or healthcare companies in India, 90% of our business happens in the private domain, which means precisely meeting clinics, hospitals, whether that be in the private sector, both at the metro cities, and also in primary cities, primary care setup. Sorry. So I think India is predominantly a private-driven market. Now, cut to markets like, let's say, UAE, or let's say South Africa, Saudi Arabia, you would see these markets are a little bit more public-driven. So 70 to 80% of the business that happens here happens through tendering. And these are tendering with the right opportunity between the local and global players as well, which also gives an opportunity for newer molecules, newer therapy areas to be ventured into, and new devices to come into the marketplace. So we have seen, like for example, in UAE, it's a very evolved market, and there, of course, things happen more from the perspective of what's going to be the next. And let's take the example of blood glucose monitoring devices. Here in India, it contributes roughly close to 94 to 96% the BGM devices. But when you look at globally, almost 60% of the market has now moved towards continuous glucose monitoring, the patches that come today, and we have also have them available in the country. So the markets like evolved markets that I was talking about, Saudi Arabia, UAE, or let's say also South Africa, they move very fast to new technology. India takes a bit of time, and India is a more private, out of the pocket market, but wherein the other markets that I spoke about, they are all reimbursed markets. And that's the major difference. But apart from that, we also see a lot of other markets, so like the Levant countries, or let's say also the rest of Africa, Central, East, and West Africa. They are also out of pocket markets. So there are a lot of synergies that we draw from within our cluster, which we can actually use for many of the countries that we operate in.
तो अलग-अलग देशों में अलग-अलग तरह के मार्केट हैं। कहीं पे तो पब्लिक ड्रिवन है, वेयर द गवर्नमेंट पेज़, तो वहाँ अलग स्पीड है एडॉप्शन ऑफ न्यू टेक्नोलॉजी की। कहीं पे पे फ्रॉम पॉकेट है, प्राइवेट मार्केट्स हैं। और एक और जो डिफरेंस है कि जो मॉडर्न टेक्नोलॉजी है, किसी-किसी कंट्री में बहुत जल्दी एक्सेप्ट होती है। जैसे उमार जी ने बोला गल्फ में, कहीं पे मिडल ऑफ द पाथ वाले हैं, लाइक इंडिया और द लिवेंट कंट्रीज़ एंड देन देयर आर अदर कंट्रीज़ आल्सो जहाँ पे थोड़ा-सा धीमी गति से नई टेक्नोलॉजी एक्सेप्ट होती है। This acceptance of new technology, acceptance of the need for digitization, and then obviously the speed of digital transformation. Does it depend only upon money, only upon finances? Yeah, or भी factors आते हैं in individual or in societal thinking. What's your opinion, Mr. Omar?
Yeah, and they're very good questions. I spent 7 years in Vietnam, so I was based out of Vietnam, handling Southeast Asia emerging markets. And when we did a research there, sir, we figured out, or we found that when we looked at asking the people of the country, what are your top 10 priorities? Actually, health came the most, the number one. But this would differ country to country, and that depends a lot on how the people of the country take healthcare or their health a little bit more seriously. And I'm sure, sir, you would agree with me. If we did this research here in India, I don't think the top priority in India would be for people health. It could be something else. It could be a house, a car, or even gold, for that matter of fact, or maybe let's say roti kapda or makan. And I think this has to do a lot with education. In the modern world today, I think in the rest of the world, wherever I've been, at least the evolving economies or the developed economies, as we say, technology actually governs almost every aspect of their lives, and healthcare is no exception there. And so I've also seen that with development of advanced technologies such as the health apps, pedometers, food trackers, and glucometers, the data tracking has become very easy. And the authorities here, the healthcare authorities, do reimburse not only the healthcare, what you call treatment, but also the continuation of that. And with the advent of social media in most of the evolved economies, we've seen that technology has played a very important role in converting or actually educating the patients, or let's say people with different conditions. And this education has helped drive motivation to bring lifestyle change. And with the emergence of this renowned, let's say, education system that we see in different parts of the world, with the also usage of digital devices like smartphones, it has helped many people to stay, you know, stay up to date with their health condition, and maybe also converse with their healthcare professionals remotely to stay on track. And I think the thing that has been pretty much widely used is an outcome based treatment approach, which has moved out of the chambers of healthcare professionals to also the patients. So just like say you try to take care of an HbA1c less than 7% in most of the patients, I think that education has drilled so further down into the patients that they track themselves as well. So it's a mutual motivation now that we see in different parts of the world. It is also happening here in India, I have to say, sir. People are also getting educated, but we might need to bring this motivation to the next level with a community with which many people with diabetes and or for any therapy area, many people would have to get more educated onto any particular therapy, whether that be also health awareness, lifestyle modification, to make sure they get rewarded for the outcomes that we are looking forward to. So,
That's a very good point, and I'm actually reminded of 2.5 decades ago when I began practice. Uh, Around 23, 24 years ago, when I went into practice, it was a very cost-sensitive market where I chose to settle in Karnal. हर चीज पैसों में रुपयों में गिनी जाती थी, रुपयों में भी नहीं, पैसों में. And then when we asked for HbA1c testing, people would laugh. These are my
yeah,
glucose values. I know how much my glucose is. मैं क्यों check करवाऊं?
correct.
But I kept on following the same message or giving the same message to the people. And now, 2 decades later, actually, it is patients who motivate me. Doctor, साहब, why is my HbA1c 7.1? Why is it not 6.9? तो
Yeah,
अगर हम लगातार एक ही मैसेज देते रहें, if we all speak in the same voice, we can actually make an impact. Of course, that
absolutely.
was not digital messaging. It was face to face, 1:1, person to person messaging. तो धीरे धीरे spread करता है. But now, thanks to modern tools, it's much easier to disseminate these messages. बट
Absolutely,
अब हमें,
sir.
हाँ उमर जी, अब हमें दिख रहा है कि जो डिजिटल ट्रांसफॉर्मेशन है, डिजिटल टेक्नोलॉजी है, ये तो एक बड़ के पेड़ की तरह है. इट इज लाइक अ banyan tree,
Hmm.
so many roots. So let's do these one by one, and we let's look at these roots one by one, and we acknowledge the questions. तो एक क्वेश्चंस पढ़ता हूँ, राठौर जी को वेलकम करेंगे. अब तनुजा जी पूछ रही हैं, हाउ डज डिजिटल ट्रांसफॉर्मेशन इम्पैक्ट द फार्मास्यूटिकल इंडस्ट्री, फार्मास्यूटिकल. Shishti ji पूछ रहे हैं, how does it improve patient outcomes, especially in diabetes care. Raja ji पूछ रहे हैं, does pharma digital marketing, now he has come to digital marketing, does it help physicians update their clinical knowledge and enhance them in better clinical decision making? And then Krishna Kumar ji asks, and rightfully so, how is digital transformation changing the way in which we develop, test, and market new drugs? तो अब ये वाकई बड़ के पेड़ की तरह दिख रहा है. It actually looks like a banyan tree. So many roots. Let's do them one by one. So let's begin maybe with developing a new drug or developing a new diagnostic, maybe a new glucometer or new glucose testing device, Mr. Omar. So let's begin with that, and finally we'll reach the patient downstream. So let's start from the Himalayas now. When you want to develop a new drug or a new diagnostic, take whatever comes to your mind. What effort goes into it? How is digitization helping you?
Yeah. No, no, very good questions. And I think I've also kind of worked in companies where we have developed molecules, and I've stayed more in diabetes care, so I can talk a little bit about that. So let's say 5 to 7 years back or before pandemic, it would have taken us close to 20 years to get a molecule into the marketplace, a commercialize a molecule. It goes through various phases, and you know whether it is phase one, phase two, phase three, and likewise many testing, and then of course many other on ground pilot before we can actually get the product out. So it used to take those many years. Now, what has happened is, even for example, clinical trials, we never thought that clinical trials could quite possibly happen also, let's say, virtually by even connecting with the doctors and feeding the data online and stuff like that. So today, most of the clinical trials that we have seen that happened during pandemic were happening digitally across the world. And a lot of data with regards to approvals for most of these molecules are now also converting to online modes of operations. So I think so this advent of evolving healthcare and delivery landscapes have helped us to kind of move a little bit more futuristic, and this will only help us bring new molecules, new diagnostic tools a little bit faster into the market space. And we have seen during COVID, many companies went out there and did their diagnostic solutions. We've also seen COVID vaccines coming out at a rapid pace, and this all happened primarily because most of it was happening digitally. And I think this will continue. And what we also see from different pharmaceutical organizations across the world, that many of us will embrace both the face-to-face and also the digital medium. And research says even healthcare professionals doctors like you, Dr. Kalra, would prefer a hybrid way of even doing clinical trials when it comes to development of new molecules. So, all in all, sir, what I'm trying to say here is with the advent of technology, we will see faster commercialization of molecules and diagnostic solutions coming forward.
अंशु सिंह जी को भी वेलकम करते हैं एंड रिधि देसाई जी को भी. सो वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट द वेरियस रूट्स ऑफ डिजिटल ट्रांसफॉर्मेशन इन द फार्मा इंडस्ट्री. तो उमर जी ने ये कहा कि जो ड्रग डेवलपमेंट है या डायग्नोस्टिक डेवलपमेंट है वो बहुत फास्ट हो गई है, तेज हो गई है. दैट इज ट्रू. एंड वन एग्जांपल इज कोविड. चाहे वो मजबूरी थी, चाहे जैसे भी था, whether it was forced upon us or whether it was voluntary, we did respond to the challenge. And vaccines, diagnostic tools, all these were created. For those who are willing to criticize and each and everything in our country at the drop of a hat, हार्डली 4 साल पहले हमारे पास पूरे इंडिया में इकलौती एक लेबोरेटरी थी जो वायरस को टेस्ट कर सकती थी. And now, thanks to our colleagues in the pharma industry, in the diagnostic industry, now COVID test is done in each and every village of the country as well. तो ये चीजें पहले available नहीं थी. And digitization has contributed to this. It's all modern technology which has made this possible. अब उमर जी, एक दवाई तैयार हो गई या एक डायग्नोस्टिक टूल तैयार हो गया, मे बी एक ग्लूकोमीटर तैयार हो गया. नाउ इट हैज टू रीच द मासेस एंड डॉक्टर्स हैव टू लर्न अबाउट इट. तो उसमें क्या रोल है? कंटिन्यूइंग मेडिकल एजुकेशन, कंटिन्यूइंग नर्सिंग एजुकेशन, व्हाट चेंजेस आर देयर? कैन यू शेयर एनी बेस्ट प्रैक्टिसेस फ्रॉम योर ऑर्गेनाइजेशन प्लीज?
Yes, sir. So I'll try to set a context to that, sir. And I think we studied this data a little bit more carefully. And as you know that India's population just a couple of weeks back has overtaken, let's say, China's population. And so if you look at with a 1.48 billion people, the urbanization in India is close to 34%. And if you look at the mobile subscriptions, we would be 87% of the population using mobile. And out of that, if you see close to more than 560 million people in the country use internet, which is 41% penetration. And if you break that data further down, the mobile social media users are roughly close to 290 plus million in the country, which is again a penetration of close to 21%. So there is a lot that is happening with digital ways of working out there. And so what we've seen in the last 2 to 3 years, four things have changed dramatically. And the first one being telemedicine. So earlier what used to happen is when a new molecule used to come, we have to go out, launch it through face-to-face interactions and through the healthcare professionals, get it to the patients and all of that. But now what we have seen is one area which has grown tremendously is telemedicine in India. And we've seen during the pandemic roughly we added close to 15 million users, which was a growth beyond 500%. The second area, so that we saw was online pharmacies, and this was something that was not practiced,
Earlier.
very well before the pandemic. And so there has been during pandemic and post pandemic, it continues. There's been a rapid growth of more than 157% during the lockdown period, and it continues altogether. We've seen many therapy areas where uh, e-commerce used to be only 1 or 2% in the country, but now has reached roughly close to 15%. Some of the therapy areas have already gone to 30% penetrations on e-commerce platforms. We've also seen that doctors have started engaging, and this is number three, sir. Doctors have started engaging virtually as well. And this is a classic example today that you, myself, and the entire group out here is joining on a webinar. And these might not have been happening at this pace, let's say 5 to 10 years back. But today, research says 98% of the healthcare professionals would be willing to engage, virtually, and this makes any launch very easy for pharmaceutical companies like us. And then, so last but not the least, direct to consumer as a concept has also increased dramatically. We have seen patients when they come out of your chamber or out of the hospitals, they know that they can reach out directly to the company through the online portals. And that's where I use the data of 290 plus million people who actually can do these online transactions directly through the companies. So I think, sir, these 3 areas, these 4 areas: telemedicine, e-commerce, doctor engagements and direct to consumer models have helped patients be a little bit more agile to what is needed for them. And from a pharmaceutical company perspective, using these four elements, we have also been agile, taking new molecules to the markets.
एजिलिटी इज द राइट वर्ड एक्चुअली। एजिलिटी का मतलब कि चुस्ती से और सही तरीके से सही दिशा में आप काम करें। एजिलिटी इज द राइट वर्ड व्हिच मिस्टर रोमार इज यूजिंग। And you've answered Mr. Raja Prabhakar's question. He had asked about how can we help physicians to update their clinical knowledge. So you do have portals. Uh, I would like to add a note of caution here. जब हम टेलीकॉमर्स की बात करते हैं या ई फार्मेसीज की, so dispensing the medicine is not just putting the tablet or the injection in your hand. There is a lot of uh, work that goes behind it. और जो केमिस्ट का काम होता है या डॉक्टर का या नर्स का, दैट इज टू एक्सप्लेन हाउ टू टेक द टैबलेट, हाउ टू इंजेक्ट। कभी कभी ई फार्मेसी से ये नहीं हो पाता है पॉसिबल, एंड द नंबर ऑफ मिसहैप्स दैट आर अकरिंग इन आवर क्लिनिक इज गोइंग अप मार्केटली। पेशेंट्स बल्कि आज इन आवर हॉस्पिटल वी हैव दिस रूल कि हम जब आप दवाई लाएंगे तो ही हम आपको समझाएंगे कि दवाई कैसे लेनी है, बिकॉज पीपल विल अंडरस्टैंड द थ्योरी एंड देन दे विल गो एंड बाय अ डिफरेंट इंजेक्शन, समथिंग रॉन्ग, एंड
Yeah,
देन इट वोंट वर्क। तो ये इश्यूज बहुत कॉमनली होती जा रही हैं। एंड फॉर एवरीवन आई वुड लाइक टू से दैट द केमिस्ट, द फार्मासिस्ट हैज अ वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट रोल टू प्ले। Your neighborhood chemist teaches you how to take the medicine properly, or your doctor does it. So do make sure that that person is not kept out of the loop. Otherwise दिक्कत आएगी, गड़बड़ होगी, and then नुकसान सिर्फ patient को ही होगा। But another question that we asked Mr. Omar was any best practices coming in from Roche. How are you
yeah,
able to reach nurses and doctors
yeah.
and the patients directly?
Great. And so thank you very much for that question. So one of the best practices that we came out, at least in Roche Diabetes Care, and we knew that during pandemic, it's going to be extremely difficult for patients to move out and stuff like that. Thankfully, we were much ahead of our time. And what we did was we had our solution, which is an application which the patients can use on their smartphone to connect with their blood glucose monitoring device. And that application is called as My Sugar. So we started with that, and of course with this the patients could of course come to know what their readings are. They could also input some of their day-to-day activities so that they can know what triggers a hyperglycemia or a hyperglycemia, and what kind of food is good to keep the blood sugar under control. This was one part of it, sir. And soon, due to the pandemic or during the pandemic, we also had a global solution, which is actually called as a Roche Diabetes Care platform, which we tried placing it at on the laptops of or desktops of the hospitals and also healthcare professionals. Now, because of this, what happened was the moment the patients used to get their data from My Sugar application, it seamlessly used to get connected to the Roche Diabetes Care platform, which is placed at the healthcare professionals. And this helped both the patient and the doctor communicate with each other. And this was of course during the pandemic when that we did this pilot, but now we are getting into the next phase where we believe that this can help both not only the doctor and the patient, but also the technology which is coming in between, which is the telehealth facility. And not to forget, sir, and you mentioned that sometimes face to face is extremely important, and one area that we could see is the home care. And we also have partners who would go to the home and also practice in a way that the patients can get the demonstration of these devices so that there is a bit of a face-to-face connect, sir.
तो ये तो बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट चीज है जो अमर जी बता रहे हैं। माई शुगर ऐप जो है, व्हाट आई एम अवेयर इज कि जैसे आपके पास अगर स्मार्टफोन है तो आप एक स्मार्ट मीटर भी खरीदें। Some glucometers may be dumb. Dumb would not be a nice word actually for Omar's ears, but then others are smart meters. So if you have a smart meter, the smart meter will transmit the data. जो भी आपकी glucose check हो रही है, it will transmit it to a cloud, and you can share that data with your doctor as well, and that will help you become more agile in terms of monitoring your glucose and also responding to the glucose levels. So इस तरह से digitization is helping us, is helping the person directly. That's something very nice that you've shared. Subodh Kumar Sharma ji says, does digital transformation or evolution help in pharmacovigilance? And does it help in developing or testing research products in the real world? What about pharmacopotency? Any tools that you are aware of where we can use digital technology to ensure that the insulin we are using or the tablets we are using have been kept in cold chain?
Yeah, and a very good question, sir. And I have to say, maybe some of the companies have already done it, and if not, then it's on its way. I can only say that there's an increased demand of data and artificial intelligence-driven predictive analysis that is happening today in the pharmaceutical industry. And there has been a rapid rise in the amount of health data collection during this whole last 3 or 4 years. And when the benefits to an individual well-being are very clearly expressed, there is also a readiness to share personal details. And I think with the GDPR and many other ways, we can make sure that the privacy of this data is maintained. And there are something called as a track and trace programs that have majorly helped in keeping infection levels or in different therapeutic areas under control. This further has also developed the need for prediction tools powered by artificial intelligence for optimizing the use of available resources, even in the times of crisis, I would say. And it is expected that not only now, but also going forward, not just hospitals, but also medical insurance firms will also invest more in predictive analysis to be prepared for any unforeseen dangers. And what you just mentioned, yes, it is not only pharmacovigilance, but pharmacopotency could also be checked with this data and artificial intelligence, which could quite possibly make a therapeutic area a little bit more personalized, engaged, let's say also collaborative across the stakeholder chain, also dynamic because things change and you might want to adjust your treatment based on what the artificial intelligence data is revealing. And also it could be evidence based and outcome oriented, sir.
That's a good point. And actually, these questions coming in from Saqib Abdul ji. Abdul Sahab पूछ रहे थे, can you please explain what role data analytics plays in digital transformation of the pharmaceutical industry? So that's a specific question. What does data analytics do
Hmm.
so that there is digital transformation? And then a similar question was coming in from Riddhi Desai. She said, technologies like artificial intelligence and machine learning, they are being used across all industries. What role are they specifically playing in drug discovery and development? So maybe from your experience, your company's experience, would you like to sort of take this forward? Ridhi's
Yeah.
question on AI and machine learning, and Saqib's question on data analytics.
Agree. So very good questions, and I think what we have done, at least in Roche Aptis Care, is we practice integrated, personalized Aptis management, and this is an outcome-driven, holistic approach in Aptis management. And actually, we do know that the entire spectrum for a patient is not only their doctor, but it's also the caregivers around it. So it's the healthcare professional, it's the hospitals, it's the nurses, it's the payers, and then beyond all of this, they have to individually take care of themselves, whether that's managing their medication, their monitoring, their lifestyle, their diet, food, and physical activity. So we acknowledge that a patient has to do a lot, and therefore, in any therapeutic area, we need integrated, personalized therapy management. And we've tried to do this in diabetes care. We have, we have, as I said, the My Sugar and the Roche Diabetes Care platform, but we have also partnered with a lot of companies to make sure there is coaching facility for the patients so that patients get their data, analyze it, share it with the doctor, and the doctor is able to also advise the patients based on how to keep the diabetes, for example, or improve time and range within diabetes. So for Roche, what we do is once we don't, of course, get the data, personalized data, but what we get is an aggregate data, which anybody, even a company or a hospital could collect, integrate, analyze some of these disease-relevant data points to support either it is treatment decision making or even delay disease progression. And for us as a company, we move beyond selling hardware, also to make sure we offer integrated solutions for diabetes management. And the reason why we do this is also because of the fact that uh, you know it helps in a very structured treatment. And so whatever analytics we get from the data, it helps us to structure the treatment process when we come to healthcare professionals. It also facilitates communication between healthcare professionals and patients. The data analytics tells us what exactly healthcare professionals need to know and what are the key concerns of patients. Number three, we also integrate digital tools that can visualize and analyze data with which we can personalize, engage, and collaborate with patients. And with all of this, we've also seen that there is a systemic analysis and a collaborative review of the data, which continuously feeds back into our system so that we can give better personalized treatment for the patient so that the outcome is much better. So
सो दिस इज इम्पोर्टेंट एंड द मैसेज आई गेट इज कि हार्डवेयर के अलावा या जो भी दवाई या डायग्नोस्टिक टूल है उसके अलावा कंपनीज अब अंडरस्टैंड करती हैं कि हमें extra care भी देना है. Of course, when you are looking at your financial papers, then VAT, value added tax is something different. But यहाँ पे जो मिस्टर उमर बात कर रहे हैं, that is VAT, value added therapy. They are
yeah,
adding value to the therapy. तो जो भी ग्लूकोमीटर या जो भी दवाई दी जा रही है, उसमें value addition किया जा रहा है. And this helps everybody. It helps the company. It also helps the customer. क्योंकि better quality usage भी होती है. And then the the medicine or the monitoring device that also improves with time. It evolves क्योंकि you
absolutely.
get good response, you get good feedback.
Yeah.
ये फीडबैक ही तो एक फार्माटॉक्स का मेजर उद्देश्य है. So we'd like your feedback. What else can we do to make Pharmatalks more engaging and more interesting? Now, Mr. Omar is a global leader in his field. And Mr. Omar, how many people do you look after? These 70 countries total, what would be the head count of all the
I mean,
people,
so people working in the organization or the entire population you're talking about, sir?
the people working in your organization,
So
reporting
so
to you directly,
I mean,
indirectly?
so we are not, we have a very we are a very small organization, so we're roughly close to 300-350 people within the entire cluster here, and diabetes care has overall 5,400 plus people working in the organization, sir.
5,400. And then the number of people whom you serve, that
Yeah.
is half of all the people living with diabetes in the world, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the overall population, sir, we are roughly close to we cater to a population of close to a 2.3 billion people, but with diabetes care, we would be roughly close to 131 million people with diabetes, sir.
So you serve 130 million people directly,
Absolutely.
and of course, उनके family members को अगर जोड़ें, caregivers को जोड़ें, then the number goes up markedly.
Yeah.
One pointed question, and thanks Ria for raising this question. So Ria is our artist, right? In-house artist we have. So artist Ria says, do you think that online pharmacy is good or bad for the market? Good or bad for people, as it affects the business of local pharmacy shops, as
Yeah.
well as the livelihood of marketing and sales personnel?
So very good question, and I've been speaking about it quite a bit. So of course, over these years, we've been used to retail pharmacies, and they've been doing their job pretty well, and they continue to do it. Um, I think e-commerce is just like, for example, Amazon coming into the country, which doesn't mean that the Kirana stores are stopped. Kirana stores still continue. There's a huge market for it, and it'll continue to remain. Digitization, or let's say e-commerce, will help people like many of us who would want to get things done at the click of a button. And I think there is a population for that. Currently, India is pegged at roughly close to 17% when it comes to online shopping, and this will continue. This would have impacted some of the retail stores. I completely agree with you, but I think with the sheer population that we have in this country, I think even with 80% of the population to cater to, the retail sector still has a huge business to look at. One thing I just want to add, e-commerce has its own issues. And I think, sir, you also mentioned that there is no face-to-face interaction, so one cannot tell the patient how to use it and stuff like that. But at the same point in time, we have seen that e-commerce also collects the prescription before delivering it to the patients online, and I think that's a pretty good practice that the online e-commerce channels are using. So there are pros, there are also cons. What we are also waiting for is clarity with regards to how do we operate with e-commerce in the country, and I'm sure very shortly we should have this information to make it very clear that this e-commerce channels could continue going forward. But during pandemic, we have seen e-commerce have helped all of us. And if you ask me personally, I think both have its own place, and I think it should continue with proper uh, regulations to make sure nobody is trying to breach anything in and around it. So
The rules and regulations are actually evolving. So, from a physician point of view, the pluses and minuses that I experience both have their own place, and I think everything should continue. And like Mr.
absolutely,
Omar said, we would not have been able to come out of the pandemic without e-commerce. अब जो कुछ एक प्लस पॉइंट है वो ये है that for an elderly person, someone who's not able to go out, someone who is on stable therapy, e-commerce is helpful. Actually, the cost also comes down many times. So, Omar,
absolutely,
I recently learned a new English word, and I just have to share it. So, monopoly means when you're the only seller, but
yeah,
monopsony, P-S-O-N-Y, means when you're the only buyer.
yeah,
Monopsony, and then oligopsony would mean there are very few buyers. Now, if
yeah,
you're a very big buyer, then you can call the shots and you can get the cost reduced. So
yeah,
maybe a particular tablet for diabetes, which would cost 300 rupees at my chemist, and the chemist is not earning too much of a profit, you can get that from the online pharmacy for 280 rupees or 260 rupees. Because
yeah,
the pharmacy is so big, it can order in bulk. That is monopsony. So the benefit is passed on to the customer.
absolutely,
नेगेटिव्स भी हैं. नेगेटिव्स ये हैं कि एक तो the concept of medication counseling is not there. It is just absent. So somebody has to fill the gap. And we find that at every level, at my level, at the nursing level, pharmacy level, we all have a grouse then that, why are we being asked to first correct a wrong habit, which we had no, contribution in creating, and then we have to create the right habit. And then the patient assumes that everything that is E or electronic or digital is correct and everything that we are saying is wrong. So that creates heartburn. And the second thing is, then when I want to change medication, patient's glucose went up or went down. So let us say patient is on tablet 2 plus 500, right? I tell the patient we need to stop this, now we need to give you 50 plus 500, and then patient will argue, but sir, I have already ordered 3 months worth of therapy.
yeah,
So that was not my fault. I never asked you to order 3 months therapy. And then we say, okay, keep it. We'll try maybe next month we can use it. Then the answer rejoinder comes, sir, the expiry is also 3 months. So that you can go and argue with the local pharmacist about expiry,
absolutely,
but you can't argue with the e-line people. And here
correct,
I see an increasing trend. People will order online and then they
yeah,
will go and badger their neighborhood chemist into accepting that therapy, that,
yeah,
the leftover strips which the chemist had never sold you in the first place. So
correct,
there are pluses and minuses.
absolutely.
Uh, but we welcome Dr. Shubhlata Chitwal. Madam is a senior physician from New Delhi. Ayat Sharma ji bhi hain. And Mr. Omar, greetings for you from Ahmedabad and blessings from Dr. N.S. Sharda. Sir is one of the senior most physicians in the country.
Thank you.
Dr. Vipin Bandula is a civil surgeon, Kangra district, Himachal Pradesh. He
Sure.
also has logged in and greets you. Dr.
Thank you, sir.
Shubhlata Chitwal says that digital things are so difficult for elder people, for senior citizens to learn. But still there are plus points. So anything that you've been doing in your industry, in your organization, to make digital transformation more person friendly, senior citizen friendly.
So, no, I think a very, very good point, and you rightfully pointed it out. And I guess many patients are, let's say, 60 plus, and for them to use digital technology becomes exceptionally difficult. And I think, sir, this is where a best practice could come in. And we have done this in our company, and many other companies are also doing it. Um, I think the healthcare professional still needs to be in the center of the entire treatment protocol that is getting set for a particular therapeutic area. And through the healthcare professional, the better practice is that these patients should get a coaching facility with which they're able to have somebody in between before they can go to their doctors. And I think many of these companies are helping the elderly patients in the country with home care facilities. So they of course go meet the patients at their home, they counsel them, they talk about diet, exercise, and a lot of other modalities. They also sometimes connect them with the doctor, and also they are able to take some of the analytics which quite possibly the elderly patients are not able to see themselves, but are able to communicate that with the patients and also with the healthcare professionals. So what I'm trying to say here is that elderly patients need a little bit more care, and therefore we call it personalized treatment. And there it has to be a mix of digital with a home care therapy. And I think we this home care as one of the areas is growing pretty much. And we have seen with most of the diagnostic labs coming to our home to do the testing during COVID. Today we hardly go to a laboratory. It's on a click of a button that they come to our place, get ourselves tested. And I think they need to go beyond testing to also now supporting the elderly to be taken care at their home front, sir.
And Dr. Shivlita is right. I mean, Google Time, FaceTime, Zoom, these are all
Absolutely.
now part of literacy, like the basic arts, reading, writing, and arithmetic. And once you are able to master this, then a whole new world of opportunities opens up.
Absolutely, absolutely, sir.
In
And
fact,
sorry, sir, I forgot to mention this, and I think I said it somewhere. The telehealth has provided several benefits, particularly related to chronic illnesses, I would say. And for example, if it was my parent, I could get this parent connected over Facebook with the doctor, and with this, a patient can get treated from a specialist of choice without having to travel long distances. And this telehealth has suddenly reached the widespread adoption many of us wouldn't have even thought about. And when my father asked me, how can I do this, and I said, okay, I will make sure you're connected. And he was pretty surprised. Without even traveling to this hospital, he was able to consult with the doctor. So you're right, sir. I think telehealth will provide this whole platform that the elderly patients would also find it easy for them to manage their condition at home.
and Madam shares a best practice. Madam Chatwal has started learning this field, and she's confident she'll get through. So three cheers, ma'am.
Super.
Uh, Telemedicine, teleconsultation is offered by many doctors. Many don't offer as well.
Yeah.
So I guess it depends upon the doctor's likes, dislikes, ability, disability. But if you want expert opinion in oncology, in endocrinology, usually it is available. Of course, for acute illness, for critical illness, you do have to go to the hospital or to the emergency. But many of the stable things, chronic things, can be managed at home. Dr. N.S. Sharda says that it is expensive offering this home service to seniors. But from your point of view, Mr. Omar, you talked about the My Sugar app, and then
Yeah.
we talked about smart phones and also smart meters.
Yeah.
Does it cost extra to get this My Sugar app?
No, sir. This My Sugar app is not charged. It is free of cost, and it doesn't need to be only with a specific, let's say, meter from Roche. It can be from any meters, and you could just download this application and use it with any meter. So it's a service that we from Roche provide. So yeah, it's not of any cost.
That is nice to hear, actually, and it helps make the world a smaller place, more connected.
Yeah.
Devlina Dasji says, you come from a big industry, sir. But there are so many small scale industries, medium scale industries as well in the country. What digital strategies can we use as a small or medium scale industry provider to transform our business?
Yeah. And I think so. And we were speaking about it before this session. It's something like a Chat GPT, and I think everybody has heard about Chat GPT today. Um, there's a lot that has happened because of this digital transformation, whether that is acquiring capabilities or communicating with the customers, or even transforming the way we work with regards to the processes in an organization. And with this digital ways of working, all of this and maybe many more that I've not spoken about could be transformed. Let me just make it very easy for us to understand this. Let's say I wanted to make a communication, and if I'm working in an organization, I do not have people to work on a particular communication for a newsletter or for a communication being sent to a particular group of stakeholders. Then, as we discussed, chat gpt could be one way of acquiring that digital technology and making sure we use this. So this is already a capability that you can build without thinking too much about it, and that's a digital transformation already, sir. Apart from that, as I said, reaching out to customers have become very easy. I will give a few examples, not from healthcare now. Let's say, let's take a different business altogether. Earlier, you remember people would look at these yellow pages to figure out who is, delivering a fish tank. Now, because of social media, you can easily figure out who can deliver this fish tank at home, or a fish pond. Uh, and I think social media has played a very, very important role. So acquiring this capability of digitally marketing yourself on social media can help quite a bit. And you and I know, sir, Google is one of the platforms that people acquire this social media from. And one good way of marketing yourself is the social marketing on Google platforms and many other platforms, so that you come on top of many of the searches in that particular area, so that you are able to make the mark digitally without spending too much of resources.
Yeah. So for a small scale industry which is dreaming to become medium, or a medium one which is dreaming to become big, search engine optimization is something good.
Absolutely.
Of course, from a
Absolutely.
doctor's point of view, so I do not indulge in that, and then I see some of the younger colleagues doing that. So I don't even figure in the list of top 10 or 100. But then that's fine. It depends upon what you want, what you are
Absolutely.
aiming for as an industry, as an organization, or as an individual. If you wish to grow socially, then the options are there. They are all available, and there we can use them.
Yeah.
Question coming from, and comments as well. Chandrasekharji says that digitalized healthcare enables quick access to doctors and healthcare. That is true. How is the pharma industry leveraging the opportunity and riding the wave?
Yeah. No, sir. I think, as I also said a little while ago, pharma industry has, of course, we were taken by surprise when the pandemic hit us, and we all knew that we need to embrace digital ways of working. So today, I think most of the pharma companies, I would say, have embraced the hybrid ways of working. And Dr. Kalra, you would agree. Um, let's say 5 years back, most of our CMEs would happen only face to face. But today, when you look at some of these CMEs, I think 60% of them are happening virtually, and we are still continuing 40% with the face to face. So I think it has brought in a lot of efficiency to make sure still the continuous medical education is happening, but at the pace that we would have never thought. And so therefore there's been a lot of agility in the way we are able to take the communication and messaging out in the marketplace. And pharma industry has been embracing this very well. I have to say most of the companies have embraced it. And not only that, sir, I have to also say that we have structured our organizations also in a way that it is matrix organization. So we don't have too many people. Like I said, we don't, in our cluster operating 70 countries, we hardly have 350 people. So which means we are using our global resources in a way that it is a matrix organization. So efficiencies have come to a different level with this digitization.
There is also a concept of being a zero carbon company. And
Absolutely.
many of the global companies now are reducing travel for their workers, for
Absolutely.
their professionals as well, because many things that can be done online don't need to be done physically. So you don't need to travel so much. Dr. Vipin
Absolutely.
Mandula points out that it would be a good idea if you have hybrid healthcare delivery also for a particular individual. Maybe the medical professional, the doctor, can do teleconsultation and advice therapy, and then
Yeah.
the community health officer, the worker,
Absolutely.
or the nurse can inject the medication if required, and
Yeah.
both can keep contact with each other. They can communicate. They can record, things like pulse, blood pressure, which can't be done remotely. So, but
Absolutely.
You need an ecosystem which is enabled, where connection is real time, where the
Yeah,
internet connections are good. So for all this, we kind of assume in hygiene, in information hygiene, we assume that we have 4G and 5G connectivity. That is an assumption now, which is,
yeah,
it has just become part and parcel of life now.
absolutely.
One last question, Mr. Omar. This is from Satvik Sharma sahab. So Satvik sahab bolte hain, any challenges that you have faced while implementing all these digital transformation initiatives? Anything that
Yeah.
comes to your mind when you got in trouble, and then how did you come out of that trouble?
No, definitely very good question, sir. And we got into trouble every time that we started thinking about it because uh, digital is an area where most of us had never ventured into. Thankfully, at Roche, we had some of these solutions already built, but I can only talk from a healthcare industry perspective in India. So we were hit, and we were all vulnerable to it. Um, but I think the challenges that we faced was we didn't know what exactly we could do in a very short period of time. I think that was the biggest challenge that we faced because it was all during the pandemic. It was completely virtual, so we really didn't know how to reach out to our customers, our other stakeholders like supply chain. Everything was hit, but as we kept unearthing each one of it, we looked at different areas, whether it's supply chain, whether it's e-commerce, whether it's connecting to the patients, to the doctors, to the other caregivers. We realized it needed individualized understanding, and that is the biggest challenge and learning that we had. That you cannot have one solution for all kind of a thing. You needed to actually customize it to go to different stakeholders. Otherwise, that digitization could go quite possibly redundant. So one of the biggest challenge that we faced was how to customize this, how to personalize the digital front for the customers. And I guess in an area where we had very less experience in, that was the biggest challenge.
And I think this is ongoing. Of course, you need digital technology, but you also need a
Yeah,
humane interface. And this is
absolutely.
something we'll keep on addressing. I think that is part of being human, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Finding challenges and then facing them, and then resilience would be the keyword
Yeah,
here.
exactly.
Swapna Janji, thanks you. A great talk. It's already been 1 hour. We never realized. Mr. Omar, has Mrs. Omar ever told you that you have a very beautiful voice, a very pleasing voice?
So thank you so much for that compliment. And somebody told me today that I sound like SP Balasubramaniam. So I thought it was a missed opportunity for singing for Salman Khan. So yeah, I'm too old for it now. Thank you
Uh,
so much.
you're not old, you're very young. सूरज जी का क्वेश्चन मैं एक्नॉलेज करता हूँ. सूरज says, do you know something about cancer? Well, the answer is yes, but फिर हम experts भी नहीं है, neither Omar or me. So
Yeah,
we'll get a cancer expert next time for you, Suraj.
sure.
Ayushi ji asks a question, if you can answer specifically for India. What impact has digital transformation had on the workforce in the pharmaceutical industry? Have there been mass layoffs or no?
Yeah, and a very good question. It's a very sensitive question, also, I have to say. Yes, it has had an impact. And digitalization, as I said, brings in a lot of optimized efficiency in any organization. Um, and during pandemic, we saw that most of the organizations, most of the industries were hit because of the operating profit issues, because sales were not optimal. So I'm now talking not only healthcare, I'm talking beyond healthcare, many of the industries. Some did exceptionally well and hence they were not impacted, but many, majority of them definitely had to find optimized ways of working. And hence, when digital ways of working came into the picture, there was efficiencies. Yes, there were, of course, layoffs as well, and you get to hear them almost every day now also, because of the fact that most of the companies are embracing new ways of working. And I also told you about the matrix organization that Roche also has today. So there were many optimizations done across different industries. So yes, it is a hard fact, but it remains a fact that there were impact for people across industries. But that has also helped build a capability in different parts of the world to make sure we are able to embrace these changes, and also build organizations which are having digital capabilities to handle any unforeseen situations like this in the future.
There will be ups and downs, but a very heartwarming best practice coming from Kangra in Himachal Pradesh. Dr. Bandula says that the cardiologists in Kangra, three or four of them, they constituted a tele ECG group,
Okay.
and they provide ECG interpretation services 24 by 7 to medical officers of the district. So that is something very nice. You don't have to go to the cardiologist to find out whether you're ill or not ill, and the
Yeah.
medical officer gets to know immediately, and then you can refer the right patient to the right doctor at the right time. So thank you, Dr. Bandula, for sharing this best practice with us. Mr. Omar, as long as we have doctors like Dr. Bandula, uh, Dr. N.S. Sharda sir, and Dr. Shubhlata Chatwal, and as long as we have people like you at the helm of affairs, I'm very sure we'll move towards a much healthier, a much happier world. We call in our industry, we call Roche the glucometric guardians of the galaxy because they guard our glucometrics and they guard it very well. They take care of our glucose numbers in a very nice way. So, how does this feel, Mr. Omar, the glucometric guardian of the galaxy?
No, thank you very much for that, Doctor. I would not take um, any pride out of saying that this has not come from Roche. This has come from your side, and we love to learn from stalwarts like you because this terminology first initially during the pandemic was called as let's say glucovigilance, and now it has come to a level where it is going to be a glucometric guardians, and I think I have to only thank you for bringing this concept of glucovigilance and glucometric guardianship because I think together as healthcare professionals and industry leaders, we have certain obligations not only from the perspective of reaching out to people with diabetes, but also making sure their themselves and the caregivers are taken care during this entire phase. And therefore, we need not sell our products or devices or solutions, but we need to sell guardianship. And I think we are moving towards that level where it's about care, but not about selling products. And I think that's where glucometric guardianship, covers a boundary, saying that it's beyond kind of selling products, but it is more taking care and bringing access to care for patients in different parts of the world.
Thank you so much for your time, for your expertise today. It's been great having you, and on behalf of everybody who is logged in, we thank you for being part of Pharma Talks.
Thank you.
We have Pooja and Shriyan with us backstage. Could you please show a certificate of appreciation for Mr. Omar, please? Thank you, Mr. Omar, for being with us,
Thank you
and we
so
look
much,
forward
sir.
to
It's been
seeing
a
you
pleasure
further.
talking to you and interacting with the group. It's an absolute honor, sir. Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
KKM Talks is it's a daily show. It's a non-stop show, and I'm on the show every Monday and Thursday. Med Talks and Pharma Talks सब हम दोनों alternate करते हैं. And to everybody who is logged in, please continue with us on this journey towards better health. Jai Hind.
Jai Hind. Thank you so much.